Hello and welcome to Jennifer Knatters. I am Jennifer and this is Oliver. Oliver is my Gingy. He has decided to join us tonight. And this is my knitting, got his claw stuck. This is my knitting and nattering podcast. Yes, say hi. Sorry, I started this video a little before I was ready because I have him and he is wonderful and sweet and fluffy. Today is the 21st of July. I will probably post this tomorrow because it is a fair bit late at night. And yeah, I'm completely not ready. I moved everything out of the way so that he would come and have space, and I don't get my Gingy very much anymore. We have two cats. We have Oliver and then we have a gray stripy Libby. They're litter mates. And when we got them, Oliver is my baby and Libby owns, controls, has complete dominance over my husband. And then I had babies and Oliver decided that he did not love my babies, and so he was going to give me a fair bit of space. But now, since I have snuck out and I don't have any babies with me, he has come to collect his due. I think it's been, just put him next to me. That's a lot of ums. It hasn't been that long since my last podcast. I think it's pretty close to a week. And now I'm trying to scratch something out of his fur. And I'm going to do ands and ums. And I will start with a finished object that I hadn't even cast on last week. So we'll go right to the knitting now. And this is a fuss-free baby cardigan. It is still wet, so I'm holding it very gently. I took the leftover merino. It is the King Cole merino. I've got the tag over here. Sorry, I told you I am not even remotely prepared. Merino blend DK. Excuse me, I'm just gonna stop this. Sorry about that. I've got a bit of a cold. Don't I have a bit of a cold? And I also have asthma, and it tends to combine in a really bad cough that doesn't go away very much. Sorry, I thought I was more over it than it turns out I am. As I was saying, this is a fuss-free baby cardigan by Louise Tilbrook, and I knit it with leftover, it's still damp, leftover merino Cole DK superwash, King Cole merino blend DK superwash. Ta-da! That I had ordered for the 13th Doctor scarf that I knit around Christmas time. And so I took out the kind of jewel tone colors. Just gonna drink a little more tea. Sorry about that. I knit it in a little over a day. I started it before bed 2 nights ago and then finished it when I sat down to knit today. And it is for the baby sister of one of Tulip, formerly Kitten's, friends from nursery. And she was born at 28 and almost 29 weeks last week. So she's very tiny. And they've had to go to Aberdeen because I guess the NICU there is better. Aberdeen's a bigger city, so it makes sense that it has a bigger hospital. I am so sorry. Anyway, the baby was born here in Inverness, but they've had to go to Aberdeen So I've knit a wee jumper, and I knit the 0 to 3 month size, but this seems more like at least a 3 to 6 month size. I didn't swatch. I just took the yarn and some needles, which are larger than the needles I knit the scarf on. So I knew it was going to be a bit loose, but with babies, excuse me, I am just all kinds of, if I wait until I'm feeling better to do the podcast, it's going to be another 3 weeks again. With babies, they grow. So I knew this wasn't going to fit her right now or even right away. And that's fine. I also, we were in town today, so I stopped by Boots, and they usually have some baby clothes on sale. So I got their, I think one of them was called Tiny Baby and one of them was called Early Baby, but they're preemie clothes. And it will be a while yet before she's out of hospital and can come home. And I think it'll be a while yet before she's even as big as the preemie clothes. But excuse me, now I've got the sniffles. That can't possibly be pleasant. Excuse me 1 second. See, now I'm sniffing again. I should possibly start this and start over again. I hate being sick. This cold isn't even that bad. I've just felt relentlessly meh, and then there's this cough that has kicked up. Anyway, it'll be a while before she needs any of this stuff, but she's been born, so I knocked out a baby cardigan for her, and hopefully she'll be able to wear it this winter and won't be this size next year or anything. It seems really big to me. Yeah, so I knit that this week. I haven't even started that. I showed you last week I finished the July project for Boost Your Knitting, and since then I have continued working on my CustomFit Alta. Sorry, my knitting bag fell over, and for some reason that's bothering me. When I showed it to you last time, I didn't have the back piece to show you. I don't have it again this time. But there's my little progress keeper. I was not very far up from the ribbing, and I was saying I wasn't finding it intuitive. I wasn't enjoying it. Apparently I figured out the intuitive. So the silver stitch marker is my progress keeper. It's a little tea bag. The pink stitch marker is where the waist decreases. I know it looks like the panel goes out from there, but it actually goes in. There's more fabric on the side, and then they decrease away. The center panels, it stays straight. The decreases are outside of it. So the pink one is where I started the waist shaping decreases. This one in the middle here is where I've crossed a cable the wrong way, so I know where it is when I need to go back and fix it. The yellow stitch marker is where the waist decreases ended. And then this pink stitch marker with the pussy hat on it is where the waist shaping increases are. And I have done 1, 2, and I have 2 more black stitch markers, it should be 2 more. Yes, there are 2 more stitch markers hanging on my pink one where I started. So I've got 2 more increases to go. These ones were every 4 rows, which was every time I wasn't doing one of these kind of, they're not really a baubles, but they look a bit like a bauble over here. So I either had a bauble row or a decrease row. And now these are every 16 rows, which again is on a non-bauble row, but further spaced out. Anyway, this is it, and it's coming along really nicely. It's going to be a bit A-line, and then have this beautiful cable up the front. Ta-da! And then there's a cowl neckline. And I don't know if I'm going to do the cowl neckline. I did a custom fit pattern, so it includes the cowl, but I might do just a regular kind of, it's a 2x2 rib at the bottom, so a 2x2 rib, and then knit the cowl as a separate piece that I could wear or not wear, depending on if I wanted it. Yeah. So that's like, as soon as I sat down to work on this after the last podcast, I guess I had done enough that the pattern was in my head enough that it wasn't driving me bonkers anymore. So there's that one. And the other one I've been working on are my Wildflower socks. This is the second sock. It looks really wonky because I'm doing shaped toes. Last time we spoke, this was my progress keeper. So I was up to here on the first sock. That's the waist yarn. I do a double row, knit across and knit back, and then switch back to the regular yarn to keep going rather than slipping the yarn. And it's got the wonky toes. I think I did one more row of both sides and then up on this one than I did on this one, because this one just seems a little wonkier to me. But when they're on, they look great. It only looks weird holding up, get this stuff out of the way, holding up the wonky toe. And I didn't quite get them to match, but they'll be pretty close. Although given that when I switched from using the 9-inch circular to this, my gauge tightened up a bit. So this one's doing the whole thing on the long circ, magic looping it. Will be a slightly tighter gauge on this one. I mean, the stripes are matching up really closely. Yeah, right here I've already caught up, so they'll probably get off in the other direction. But I've been working on this a little. With this one, I've been just starting the yellow, and it was Monday. We were going out. We had a whole week of doing stuff with Christina, and I didn't want to carry around the whole big ball and most of a sock in my little handbag. I remember I was wearing an outfit. It was really hot, so I was wearing an outfit that unfortunately did not have a lot of good pockets. So I just pulled out. I just started the yellow, and I pulled out until I got to the next yellow, and then I knew I'd started the toe in the pink. So I pulled out a little into the pink. I probably should have done just another, I wasn't sure if I was going to run out of yarn, but enough to do pink all the way around. Yeah, so I pulled out basically a full color repeat, yellow to yellow, and then I just tucked it inside the sock, so I only had to carry a little bit of yarn, and that wound up being perfect for an even sock. That'll be the same length in the leg as it is in the foot, and then we'll just have the heel here. I might have wanted it to be just a touch longer, but then my toes would not have started at the same place. Although I could have just done the heel and then done the toe, but you never know how that's going to work out. So I thought we will stop at the point we're at the same thing. So then I did started my toe with my uneven, so it'll be shaped toe, a more anatomically correct toe. And been knitting away. This is just my progress today. We went to church and I sit there and with my hands behind the pew in the back of the church, and I knit when people aren't actively praying, let's bow our heads in prayer. The rest of the time I knit and I listen. And if I don't knit, I don't listen, because I've got ADD, and sometimes that's what having ADD means. If you're too idle, you will not be paying attention. Ta-da! Since my coughing fit, my brain is gone. Not that I clearly had much brain earlier, because I have a little bit with Oliver where I clearly had no brain. He still sat next to me. He's very fluffy. He has always sat next to me while I did my knitting. If I'm casting on and like one end is dangling and the other end is moving around, then he tries to catch my knitting. Or if the yarn is actually going past his face, he's interested in knitting. And the rest of the time he is not interested in knitting. And that's my 2 works in progress. Tonight I picked up the Harriet's hat that I mentioned last time and the time before, and did 3 rounds on it while watching Veronica Mars. I bought Veronica Mars because everyone in the US is like, yay, Veronica Mars! And I'm like, it's not out in the UK yet, but I can rewatch the earlier seasons, except they're not streaming anywhere. And we do have them on the telly, but Chris had downloaded them, so they're like things that aired on UK telly here. And there's some of the episodes I recognize bits are missing. So I know all the episodes must have been just trimmed for time. The bits I recognize missing aren't thematically problematic or anything. So they must have cut them for time. So I want to watch the whole unabridged original airings of Veronica Mars. So I finally went out and bought them. It was only £14 for the first season. So I will watch that, and then I will watch the second one, and then I will watch the third one, and then I will watch the movie. And hopefully by that time, someone in the UK will have picked up the 4th season of Veronica Mars, because I love Veronica Mars. It's worth mentioning that I am from California, and I am not from as far south in California as Veronica Mars is set. It's fairly close to Southern California. She's a short drive, like an hour north of LA, I think, an hour or two. And I am from the Bay Area, which is like a 5-hour drive from LA, 5 to 7 hour, depending on traffic, or depending on which way you go, I guess. I'm actually from like an hour short of San Francisco, so probably add an hour to each of those if you're actually leaving San Francisco. Anyway, I grew up in a town very much like Neptune, where there are the children of millionaires and the children of the people who work for the millionaires. And that was kind of the disparity in incomes where I came from. Certainly by the time I got to high school and they were all together. So, yeah, I feel very familiar watching Veronica Mars as one of the people who we did not have money and had friends who lived in mansions in very expensive real estate areas. We not like mansions where regular houses are affordable. These are mansions in places where mansions are twice as expensive as they are elsewhere. So Veronica Mars, who is around my age, I think she would have just been like 3 years younger than me, 2 years younger, not even very much at all. Because in the pilot episode, which I just watched, her dad said he rented the South Park movie, and that came out on VHS, when I was a freshman at uni. And she was a junior in high school, which is, for the UK people, 4 years of high school, junior is the second to last year, so the third year of high school. And I was 2 years ahead of that. So let's say I am 2 years older. And also for reference, Buffy and I have almost the same birthday. So if you watch Buffy the Vampire Slayer, she's basically the same age as me. And I'm going to cough again, so hold on. I'm sorry about that. So, as I was saying, I knit 3 rows on my hat, which also was a lot easier than it had been. I think because I'm in the middle of a motif on the Harriet's hat. I didn't bring it. I literally only picked it up tonight. But when you're in the middle of a motif, it's a lot easier to keep knitting than when you're setting up motifs. Because when you're setting up motifs, you actually have to count. And when you're in the middle of a motif, you can see where you've been and build up from there. And I think on both my Alta pullover and on Harriet's hat, I'm in the middle of motifs now. So now that I finished the baby jumper, and I'd left the Alta out here because I was hoping to come out and podcast, and I figured we'll leave it out here. But then between the time when Catherine fell asleep and when Tulip falls asleep, I was like, oh no, I don't have any knitting. Should I start something new? And I'm like, no, the hat's right here. Okay, we'll work on the hat. I'll be good, rather than, because these were in my handbag, so they were out near the lounge as well. If I come out before Tulip goes to bed, she wants me to be the one to put her to bed. And frankly, I feel that we can each put one kid to bed. That's fair. I put Catherine to bed, and because she still nurses at bedtime. She gets to nurse at bedtime and first thing in the morning, and then like if she falls and gets hurt or something and needs a comfort, although for the most part I try not to, but if she really needs a comfort during the day, we can possibly nurse, but for the most part, first thing in the morning, last thing at night, she gets a little nurse, and she usually goes right to sleep. She's so zonked by then. So yeah, I feel like that is my mummy doesn't have to be mummy time for a little while until Tulip goes to bed, and then I will come out and hopefully spend some time with my husband or talking to you, my hypothetical you who are watching my video. Yeah, so I picked up Harriet's hat and I did a few rounds on it. Pat myself on the back. Good knitter. Because I do want to start new things. So moving on to acquisitions. And I actually have a woolly acquisition. I'm sorry, it is crinkly. I bought an entire bag worth of Carol Feller's Nua, which is the Irish Celtic word for new. And this is, it's a sport weight yarn, which is one of my favorite weights, and it's not a very common one in the UK. Like, it just, until recently, didn't even exist. So you have something like Rowan Felt Tweed DK is a sport, but they call it DK. It's a light DK, or you could have a heavy fingering because they don't have the sport. But this is 60% merino wool, 20% yak, 20% linen, 140 meters for, or 153 yards for 50 grams. And I got, you can't really see the color, it's purple. I don't particularly want to open the bag. You may just have to take my, you can kind of see it there. It's a dark, really blue toned purple. And then the yak, or maybe it's the linen, one of the fibers. The fibers all take up the dye differently, and it gives it a very tweedy effect. And I'm a big girl, if you haven't noticed. And one of the things about being a big gal is that you need more yarn to knit a thing. And so if it's expensive yarn, that adds up really fast. Like, I know on Kate Davies' website, it'll be like, here's a kit of yarn, you know, a sweater quantity of yarn to knit X sweater that she's designed. Again, Kate Davies has her own yarn as well. And it'll say starting from 47 pounds. And you're like, wow, 47 pounds to use this really nice boutique yarn to knit a really nice cardigan, pullover, whatever. That sounds reasonably. Well, that's how much it costs to knit the extra small. When you're knitting the double XL, it's 90 pounds. That's twice as much. That is a huge difference in price. So when you're buying things like that, you really have to watch for sales and things. Although for Isolde Teague's latest pattern release, which I also bought, she did a yarn kit for it, a pre-order to have yarn dyed and stuff. And she prorated the yarn. So if you got one skein, it was X amount. And if you needed 4 skeins, it was less than 4 times the one skein. I mean, it was still more, but it's prorated. You got a bulk discount basically. And that seems amazing to me, that you might charge a little extra for one skein so that people who need a lot more yarn to knit the same sweater could do so without entirely bankrupting themselves. And I know she is specifically doing that to be more size inclusive, to make the yarns that she sells. This one, I believe, I don't know if it was a custom blend, but I know she was dyeing it in the different colorways in-house. But to specifically make it affordable for people who need more yarn, having what basically amounts to a bulk order discount seems pretty neat. I was really tempted by that, but there was a kind of navyish blue, and then there was a hot pink, but the hot pink seemed a bit too warm, like too yellow toned, whereas I really like cool tones. So I thought, no, I won't. I will be good and not spend lots of money on a sweater quantity of yarn when I have so many sweater quantities of yarn. And I have a sweater on the needles that I need to finish, and I just bought a second sweater quantity of yarn here. Anyway, the Nua was on sale. Ms. Feller did a discount in her shop where if you bought 4 skeins of either of her yarns, there's the sport weight Nua, and then there's a worsted weight Nua that just came out earlier this year. If you bought 4 skeins, you could have a 5th skein free. And I thought, oh, be good, I won't. And then Carrie Westerman was like, I love this yarn so much. And I'm like, okay, twist my arm. I will, if other people are saying it's one of their desert island yarns, then I will certainly try it out. Carol Feller is one of the designers in another year of Techniques Boost Your Knitting. And I am hoping that this Nua will be one of, that her pattern will be a Nua, except it's not a yarn that they currently stock, the Arnold Culliford's currently stock in their shop. They could add it later, but it's not one that's currently there. And the ones that they do for theirs, they usually stock in their shop, if only so that they can have it for the kits that they send out. So maybe she used one of the, although I was going to say maybe she used one of the Fiber Spates brand yarns, but Nua it's Carol Feller's exclusive yarn, but I know that it is produced under the Fiber Spates banner. That is the company. I know the woman who runs it is named Jenny, and I can't think of what her last name is or any other identifying information about her, but it is her company that produces the Nua for Carol Feller's distribution. So it would make sense that they would be able to get it fairly easily. Speaking of Boost Your Knitting, another year of Techniques, it is supposed to come out next month. I don't remember if it was supposed to print for August and ship to be in early September, or if we're meant to get it in August. But if you follow online knitting at all, especially on Instagram, you'll know there was a bit of a dust up these last couple of weeks between a knitter who goes by Sockmatician, who posted, I don't follow him, I don't watch his podcast, I've never knitted any of his patterns or taken a class from him or anything, but he is a prominent UK knitter, so I'm aware of his existence. And he wrote this little poem, I guess you could call it, where I guess he had started a hashtag Diversity. So instead of diversity, it's Diversa, Knitty. And he was complaining, I guess it wasn't just for gay people anymore. It was now being used by BIPOC and BAM. Are we pronouncing those, or are we basically other people were using it to talk about their own, hey, include more people like me in your knitting groups, in your knitting awareness. And he posted this supposedly tongue-in-cheek poem about what a drag it is that this was supposed to be a fun little hashtag, and it was becoming all political. And I guess people came in the comments and said, hey, that was a really rude thing to do. I mean, that's a really mean thing to do, in fact. And he was like, well, whatever. And then a few days later, his husband did a post saying that all these people attacking Sockmatician put him in hospital and they're so horrible that they've done this horrible thing to him, and how dare they gang up on him and bully him and blah, 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 blah. And to my knowledge, the flame war in the thread of this, I guess it was a blog post, it wasn't an Instagram post, but the flame war, to my knowledge, is still ongoing, where they are feeding the trolls, and by they, I mean people saying that was really offensive and horrible, and the trolls are Sockmatician and his husband, because it was not a cool thing to do. And by not a cool, I hope you understand that is an understatement and not a failure to grasp the complexities of the situation. Anyway, this has been a dust up in the knitting community, as there have been many dust ups via Instagram, which is absolutely the worst place to hold nuanced and in-depth conversations. It is a place to put a picture and a cute little caption. That is what Instagram is designed to be. It is a very visual medium, and it is also intended to be a very transitory medium. You look at the picture, you say, oh, isn't that nice? And you move on. It's all very fleeting. Anyway, Instagram has been where, in the past 6 months, a lot of shakeups in the knitting community to say, hey, we all like to think knitting is so wonderful and inclusive, and isn't it nice that everybody's nice, and we're all so nice, and it's a nice thing. And that's only true if you are white, especially if you are thin and able-bodied and cis and het and all the other things, or you can pass for any number of those things. Then it's a really nice and wonderful and warm and welcoming community. And if you're not all of those things, it is not a nice and warm and welcoming community. So this has been a very necessary conversation. In relationship terms, it is the kind of relationship where you have a fight and then you come together as a stronger group, except for the people who are, taking their wool and going home, I guess. But anyway, these are community adjusting things where we white people really need to shut up and listen, because these are important things people are trying to tell us. Very important things. And anyway, following this, and then there was also, Sockmatician, who was so horribly abused, supposedly, that he was in hospital, supposedly abused. I believe he was in hospital. They say he was bullied into hospital with a nervous breakdown. There was a wool event somewhere in England where he attended and was signing his book. The copy, I knew it was a knitting for men book aimed at men to get into knitting, but also if you had a man in your life you wanted to knit for, they would all be appropriate patterns. But it was specifically aimed at men to convince them to knit. Except the copy language, it turns out, like I said, he's not someone on my radar, is how about knitting is suited to the male mind. It's very mathematical and logical, and they're puzzles to be worked out. So the language is fairly problematic as far as that goes. But anyway, he was there signing his book and, being a local celebrity at a knitting thing. And a woman of color came up to him and said, can we talk about what happened this week? And can I talk to you about why it hurt me so much, what you said? And he became verbally abusive and had to be restrained from becoming physically abusive and was ejected from the knitting event. So it, as they say, it got real. In the wake of all of this, the Arnold Culliford's put forth a statement saying that one of the patterns in the book was from Sockmatician, and they no longer feel comfortable endorsing him, being associated with him. So they have pulled the pattern from the book weeks before the book was going to they were looking at proofs and sending it to the printer, and instead they now have to come up with another pattern to cover the technique and probably to use the yarn he used, if not the colors, at least the brand of yarn. I don't know. I have no idea what his pattern was going to be or what his technique is, but so they've had to pull this from their book, and they said they'll try. They don't think it's going to have too much of a knock-on effect, but they've taken lots of pictures of the project and the project in progress so that they could cover whatever the technique is and all sorts of stuff. So this is a big thing to do, to say this is not acceptable and we will not support people who behave like this. So yes, there has been a dust up in the knitting community. So there are lots of knock-on effects, and various people are being called on to call out Sockmatician and his husband and all of this, and it's been interesting to watch. I need to cough again. Sorry about that. Anyway, a lot of designers and wool people have been called on to make distancing statements from him, and if it helps anyone feel more safe, then I think that was a really bad way to behave. As I said, I don't know him from Adam. I wouldn't recognize him. I couldn't tell you any of his patterns or anything. I did take the liberty of hiding him as a designer on Ravelry, so none of his patterns will pop up for me. And I mean, I have a podcast and I talk about my knitting here and on Instagram and on Ravelry. At the time of recording this, one person has watched my previous episode, and I'm not entirely sure it wasn't me. On my other, I use a different login on a different device, which is also the one that my children use to kind of keep separate. So it might have been me on my other login checking to see that it loaded properly and everything on my other device, my other internet-enabled contraption. So, yes, we white people have to do better, okay? It's us. It's white people, and the fact that we think the whole world should cater to us. And as a feminist, it is very easy to see all the ways in which men freak out when the world no longer caters exclusively to them. Well, I believe people when they say that white women freak out when the world no longer exclusively caters to us versus people who are not white. So yeah, we have to do better. We have to do better, and we have to say this is not acceptable behavior, and there will be social consequences for being a terrible person, for acting on these terrible views. So it's us, and we need to listen. And even if, you read the poem and you took it as tongue-in-cheek and not very, the way they behaved since then makes it very clear it was not just a joke. But even if you took it as just a joke, let's sit and think about why it was just a joke. As I said, at some point it passed my radar, and I remember, I started to read it and I was like, I don't know, this doesn't seem nice to me. And so I pushed it away from me. And maybe I should have said, hey, this doesn't seem nice to me. Why are you spreading it around? Like, what do you think's going on here? Because I don't, can you explain to me? Or, said, hey, you might want to reread this because that doesn't read as just a joke. That is probably a thing that I should have done. I admit that. I should have said something. My social media presence is not the best. I have 2 children and I'm watching them, and these are my excuses, and they are excuses. But in the future, when I see things like that seem off to me from people who I think, like, who should know better, who should do better, who at least would want to do better, that I will say, why are you doing that? And if they're people who shouldn't, like people who think it's perfectly fine it's just a joke, then those are not people I need to associate with. I need to say the consequence of your behavior is that you don't, we will not be friends. I cannot be friends with people who do that. I cannot support people who do that. And that might be the only tool I have at my disposal is you do not get my attention. And that's what that needs to be. So, I can fairly say that I was not paying particular attention to the person who did this one, but there were people on my timeline who didn't read it as a problem. And in as much as I did not feel comfortable, I don't even remember. I mean, it was so long ago and it blipped on my radar so briefly, and I was just like, no, I don't have time for whatever this is. And this is not to pat myself on the back, because believe me, I look around and I'm like, yeah, no, that was wrong. That was me. And that was, I bought a copy of Why I No Longer Talk to White People About Race when it came out, because it came across my, I bought it. I'm like, okay, this is clearly something I need to read. I have not read it because I know it will not make me comfortable. And that's me choosing my own comfort over having comfort for other people. So I know I am not a paragon of any particular wokeness or anything, but if I do notice something is wrong, I need to say something so that people of color don't have to do all the heavy lifting. Black, Indigenous, people of color, Black American, Middle Eastern is BAM is I think that's a more UK one. They should not have to constantly be the ones policing this. We white people need to police each other. That's on us. We need to police each other. We need to do the work. We need to listen and learn. So I will try to be better. So that got a bit heavy. We've gotten through finished objects, works in progress, acquisitions, gardening, not all that much. We did go to the garden center and we bought a few little plants. Each of the girls picked out a mint. We got a strawberry mint and an apple mint to go with the mint we already have. So they've each got their own mint that they potted up and have out in the garden. Mint in the ground tends to take over. So mint does best in containers or small planters. And I feel like I got this little pink one in the corner. My impatient. There it is. I don't know how to point. There we go. There's my pink impatient in the corner. Our butterflies finally hatched. 4 of them have hatched. 1 of them is still in a cocoon. Just yesterday the first one hatched, and today 3 more hatched. One of them did not get one of its wings entirely free of its chrysalis. So I don't know if it'll ever be able to fly. I mean, the chrysalis is still attached to its wing. After it had been out for a while and it was pretty clear it wasn't coming off, I put my finger in, thought, like, well, if I just, I don't want to rip the wing because then we're back to the same problem if it can't fly, but like maybe if I just give it a little nudge, it'll come off. And it did not. So that one may live out its days with us in the little butterfly net that it currently lives in, and will have a nice diet of fruit and sugar water, because I don't want it just to get eaten. Although I suppose if it gets eaten, then at least it's helping a bird, where if it lives out its days with us, then it just dies at some point. Anyway. So yeah, they've hatched and they're looking very nice, and when the last one hatches, or we decide the last one's not going to hatch, we will take them outside and let them go. The other thing is I want to let them go on a day when it's not raining or forecast to rain very heavily imminently, which is kind of the forecast for the last span of time, which is another reason I really haven't done much in the garden. The Monday, Tuesday were super hot. They were muggy and really hot, and they did rain occasionally. And then since then, it's basically just been muggy and raining off and on. It hasn't even been sunny. If it wasn't muggy, it wouldn't even be particularly hot. It's just, someone on Twitter was retweeted in my timeline doing a fake Visit Scotland ad. And it was like, it's, if you go outside, you'll get soaked to the skin, but it's too hot to wear a raincoat. Visit Scotland. And yeah, so that's, if you're wondering what the weather's been like here, we even had thunder one night or one afternoon. Because there had been thunder when we went to the beach before, but I feel like we had thunder again since then, which is not, in the years I've lived here, we've had more thunder this summer than in the previous 9 years. And then we did way too much on the Monday. Tulip had swim lessons this last week. And so we had the swim lessons in the morning, and then 5 hours later, they had bouncy castle sessions in the afternoon. And it was really hot. And so after swim lessons, we had lunch, and then wandered around the floral hall for a while and played, and then had ice cream at the park, which is over there as well. And then after an hour or two there, I'm like, we need to go have food, like a hot meal. So we went back to the leisure center cafe, and I got them a plate of chicken nuggets, but I think they must have forgotten our order because it took ages, and people who ordered after us were all getting their food. And they finally brought it out, and then it was too hot to eat, and Tulip was crying, and anyway, I bought them a banana to split. And they finally ate, and then it was first, Catherine had a 45-minute bouncy castle session, and then afterwards, Christina, as an older kid, had a 45-minute bouncy castle session, except they pretty much both wound up doing both sessions. So they did 90 minutes of bouncy castle after a very long day that was very full and very active. And we were completely shattered. We did swim lessons on Tuesday, and then got together with a friend, and they're American immigrants from America as well. So they were going back to visit her family in Texas for a couple of weeks over the summer. And so it was the last day before they left, and we really wanted to get together and see them before they go. And that was supposed to kind of be a low-key, like, hey, we'll just meet at the floral hall. It wound up not being low-key. And then Wednesday, we just did swim lessons, and I pretended there was no bouncy castle. I was like, no bouncy castle today. Didn't happen every day, because they were too tired. And then Thursday, Tulip was like, no, I don't want to go. I'm still tired. And she was completely, when she got up in the morning, she was really dragging still. And then Friday, she just didn't want to go either. I'm like, what? We don't have anything planned for next week. Like, you've got one class, one day, a craft class at the museum. And the rest of the week, we don't have anything planned. Like, if you add 2 days of not doing anything to that, you're going to be really bored. Well, by Friday around noon, she was really bored. I'm like, your friends are all busy. That's why I signed you up for classes, so you'd have things to do. You could play with other kids and be active, and anyway, we'll see. This week is one of the rest weeks. It is supposed to be really hot this upcoming week. And on Tuesday, it's supposed to be sunny. The rest of the week, it's supposed to be like it has been, where it's just muggy and wet. But on Tuesday, it's supposed to be really sunny. So I asked Christina if she wants to go to the beach. And she's like, no, because what if there's thunder? I'm like, well, then we'll do what we did last time and leave. If worse comes to worse, we can always just get a taxi home or get the bus home. We normally do the train, but either of those other options, like, they exist. Where there's a children's bookshop in town, we can hang out there for a while. Or the knitting shop. There's a wool shop, a really nice wool shop in Nairn. I could happily hang out in there for a while, even though I'd have to spend the whole time being like, no, don't touch that, Catherine. No, put it back. No, don't pull all the wool out of the ball. That's her thing. She likes to get ball and just like yank things apart. That's my baby. In Catherine news, she has leveled up, speaking wise. Oh, she doesn't really speak to anyone other than us. Like, I realize we'll go over to someone else's house, and the first words they'll hear her say are, thank you and bye-bye, which she says very, very sweetly. But she has really leveled up as far as, like, any word she hears, she'll try to say. And you still need a lot of context to understand what she's saying. She's largely only getting one syllable, but she was, like 6 months ago, she was only getting one consonant sound per word. And she'd be like, buh. And you'd be like, ball, boy, bounce, blueberry, black, baby. You'd run through all the B words you could think of, and then she'd finally be like, yes, that's the one. You're like, okay. But now she's got a good syllable for, at least one syllable for words. So if you have context, you can figure out what she's saying. And she's had this cold, this coughing and everything for at least a week before I did. I'm not even entirely sure she ever fully shook it from the beginning of June when we all had a really bad cough. And let's see, anything else? Today was Proudness, the Pride Parade, or march, I suppose it was more of a march in the city center, and we were able to see some of it after we did church and we did some shopping, and we were able to see the parade start. And it started with a whole bunch of motorcycles, and then people were blowing whistles and cheering and clapping and that kind of thing. And Tulip decided it was too loud. She does, like, she's always freaked out with electric hand dryers in bathrooms and stuff like that, toilets. She's always been like, no, it's too loud. And she's sensitive to a lot of noise. So we went and finished our shopping and came home rather than joining the march, which is what we'd planned on doing. We saw another one of her nursery friends, and the nursery friend's baby brother, who is, I think, 1 day younger than Catherine. They were born the same week at the same hospital, and so they have 5 kids. They've got an older child and then the 2 little boys, and the younger one, who's Catherine's age, the whole time we were talking to their family, was just like this, holding his hands over his ears, because it was in fact very noisy. When the march started and people were going, and there was one person I saw who had we were not there very long, but I saw at least one trans rights or human rights sign, and I was crying. I don't know why I was crying, but I was. It was very affecting, and I would have liked to have lent support. Or I don't even think I have any rainbow stuff. I used to have so much. Like, I love all the colors and all the colors at once, and as my friend Miss Chrissy once said, looking like about herself, not about me, but looking like a box of crayons threw up. That's my jam. Hello, my very colorful socks. Like, I am really into all the colors at the same time. And I don't think I particularly have any rainbow stuff right now at this weight. So But we saw them go by, and I got some Proudness, some little badges. So I'm going to put one on my knitting bag. Excuse me. The one that has my Harriet hat and my badges on it. I added that one, which I think brings me up to 4 badges. It might be 5, but not a lot of badges. I am very recently and not overly, I don't know, I am not hugely grabbed by all the little pins and stuff, but I am willing to explore pins, and certainly the ones I have I'll add to my bag. And if they're really cute, or they're about tea, or tea and knitting, then I will buy them. Yeah, so we did that, and we came home, and I don't think we've really done much else this week. I mean, we had the going to the floral hall a couple of days. I think we went 3 days this week, and then we didn't go out much, and by Thursday I was just so run down. Not, I think, because of the doing too much, because that was kind of like we came home Monday and I'm like, oh god, I'm so tired from doing too much. And by Thursday it was more like I just don't care about anything. I've got a little bit of a cough, well, a big cough, but a little bit of a scratch in my throat and a cough, and just absolutely no energy to care about anything. Not tired in a physical sense, not, you know, like where your whole body hurts or you have headaches, or like the one in June was just an absolute knockout. But we were doing something and Christina was talking to me, and I was just like falling asleep at the table at 2 in the afternoon. I couldn't even keep my head up, or my eyes were very heavy, and I was just absolutely exhausted and not particularly caring about anything. So that's this cold. This is the I just don't care cold. I know my give a dang is busted. I swore in the last episode, but I'm trying to keep from getting any kind of parental guidance mark against my podcast for strong language. Parental advisory is recommended, because I don't think a podcast about knitting should need that. I did not do any sewing. I have not touched my sewing machine or moved it or anything. My babies are both home, and they are very much underfoot. Like, even having Chris in this weekend, and I'm like, oh, they're both in the conservatory with him. I will go in the big bedroom and I will do this thing, and 30 seconds later they're both with me, and then Chris has gone out to his office to do something. I'm like, it's just me and the kids again, all day, every day. That is my life. In June and May, and I think end of April, I managed to sneak off on my own for one day or evening to do something grown up, something without children. And I have not had that yet in July. I did look at taking another sewing class, but the sewing class is where I'm like, oh yeah, I'd like that finished object. I've kind of been beneath me as a sewist, and I don't mean that as, I don't think I'm particularly good, but the, you know, like the little bag I made was a beginning sewer project, and I'm not quite that beginning of a sewer. I just need my sewing mojo so that I will carve out time to sew, possibly instead of doing my podcast. Although finding my podcasting mojo has been very difficult recently. It's raining very lightly, and I don't know if you can hear that, but it'd be like, oh, well, I'll go do it, and it's pouring down rain, like so loud I'd be sitting here yelling and you would not be able to hear me. It gets so loud here in the conservatory because we just have the plastic roof. There's no insulation in the way of conservatories. Or I'd just be like, oh, well, I'll do it tonight, and then Catherine would go to sleep and Tulip would go to sleep, and I would just be like, or I could just sit here and knit and watch Netflix. That sounds nice. It was mostly a Netflix week because there was the Amazon strikes, and so I was not watching anything on Amazon Prime, which it turns out pretty much all the teleprograms I'm watching right now are on Amazon Prime. So Amazon is evil and I should not be supporting them the way I do. That's on me. I will say, however, that when you don't drive and it's difficult to get, I mean, Inverness doesn't have everything. Like, we don't have an IKEA or, you know, there's lots of things where if you want this, you kind of have to order it online. And certainly if you want it to show up at your house, I can't just, you know, bags of soil, I cannot go out and just get them. And frankly, Amazon makes it all very easy to do. So yeah, Amazon is evil. I should not support them, and I do so because it's easy for me. I'm not a good person. I said that. I am very much a selfish person, and I'm aware of that. But I do think Amazon should pay taxes. Amazon should maybe care a little less about making its investors into millionaires and a little more about there still being a world in 20 years that is habitable and can support things like Amazon as a company. But that's just me. Yes, it is not a message I'm currently giving to them with my dollars though, so I'm not pretending I'm better than anyone who uses them, because I use them. It's convenient. That was supposed to just be a yawn, and instead it was some weird, strange noise, and I hope we can all just pretend that never happened. Can we all just, that didn't happen. Anyway, it is good night from me, and let me see if I can just show you my little good night from me and Oliver. I have towels on the conservatory furniture, so if they come in with muddy paws, they don't get it all mucky. And because I have a 2-year-old who is always mucky, she got a new shirt today, and she put it on, and she had lunch, and she wiped her hand all down the side. And I'm like, why do I buy you new things? I should only buy you charity shop things. It was really cute. It had a cactus and sequins. That's the other thing they bought. They each got a cactus on Monday. They each got the mints on Tuesday. So it had a happy little cactus on it, and I knew she would love it, and it was in the sale rack. Ketchup hand all down the side. That's my baby. She is so mucky. So mucky. She took a bath today. Yesterday she drew on herself with the dry erase pens that we have like for our grocery shopping board. And she drew all over herself with the dry erase pens. She convinced Daddy to give them to her, mostly by standing there and being like, give them to me. No, the pens! The pens! You're like, okay, you clearly feel very strongly about this. And she drew all over herself with the pens. But she did have a bath because she did something. Anyway, I guess Tulip wanted a shower this morning. So Tulip took a shower, and then Catherine was like, I have to have a bath. So I'm like, okay, when she's out of the shower, you can have a bath. Because Tulip did not take a shower in the bathtub, where I could have just been like, oh, we'll stop the water and we'll throw you in at the same time. And so she took a bath, and then we went to church, and I came home. Catherine prefers to stay home with Daddy than to go to the creche. And I came home, and she answers the door in her nappy, covered head to toe in dry erase marker. And I'm like, you took a bath. How are you still completely covered in pen? So yeah, she clearly convinced Daddy to give her the pens again. I'm not complaining that she's covered in pen, because Lord knows that is a child who feels that it is not real art unless you live your art. I cannot keep her from like, oh, I'll just do some painting. That's my baby. So anyway, good night from me and Oliver. And the butterflies not pictured, who will hopefully not be here next week. Apparently, if you keep them too long, you wind up with another set of caterpillars, only this time you don't have any food goo for them. Although I did look it up, painted lady caterpillars eat nettles, so I would have to take my gloves and go pick some for any baby caterpillars that we accidentally kept. I'm getting tired and I'm getting loopy. It is 11 o'clock at night. No wonder I am. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you found that all entertaining and you won't forget about the weird Herc thing. And forgive me for podcasting when I have a cold, because there is no not having a cold. I am just a person who has colds. Yes, thank you for joining me, and say hello on Instagram. I'm the same username there, jenna.aves. So I am here, and yeah. Thank you very much, and I will talk to you hopefully next week. Bye.